What's up, Matt?
Man, I don't know who you played there, but that sounded like a pretty exciting win over Iowa. You guys make me sound good.
I think it was Ben McLaughlin.
Well, Benny Mack is a fun guy to work with, man. Maybe he rubbed off on me. Thanks for playing that, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So I'm a huge fan, Coach, and we get along well. But I am very mad at you for getting Benny in my head. I feel like he's too old for me to refer him to him as Benny. But you've like burned that into my head. It's like, I got to think of something different. I can't call another grown-up Benny. But you make it work.
Well,
that's the code effect.
Here's the thing. You and I have been around sports our whole life, and you're not really part of a sports team unless you have a nickname. I've been called Coatman forever. Plus, I was in the Navy. You can't be in the Navy without a nickname. And on our football broadcast, I'm like, I got to call him something. And my youngest son's name's Ben.
Yep.
And but Benny Mack just seems to work. Kind of like it kind of reminded me of Bernie Mac back in the day. Maybe that's why I didn't have a problem with it.
They do have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I can see Ben McLaughlin playing that role in Ocean's 11. Absolutely.
There you go, Coach.
Getting his nails done at a nail salon in Amsterdam. That's Ben McLaughlin all day.
Oh, and I hate the fact that you actually have a real job and you got the meeting coming up because we could do this, but we talked to Amy yesterday, and she said something interesting about like kind of the practice routine and freeing people up to kind of be who they are. You're watching this team, Coach, and it truly is next person up. But that's not by coincidence, right? That has to be intentional with the way she sets up practice. You don't build this kind of depth without empowering your players, right?
You are spot on, DB. When I first started watching Amy 9 years ago, and it became clear to me that she was going to play everybody, there was a part of me that thought that's not going to work in this league. You're going to have to narrow it down to a rotation of about 6 or 7. And she hasn't. She's very comfortable with who she is. And where that really emerges and helps your team is when you lose a Natalie Potts, when you lose an Allison Widener. Well, it sounds like next man up. It's not so much with this team. It's just, we keep moving on. And you look at the contributions of Jessica Petrie, who is now emerging into really a solid player that teams have to put near the top of their scouting report because she's doing things like coming off the bounce with authority. We knew she could step outside, hit the three, but her rebounding has really, really improved. So you could say next man up, but man, on this team, you're not going to get any cobwebs underneath your seat. I mean, you're going to be out there playing. And, yeah, practice is fun to watching the rotations because nobody is standing around, no doubt about it.
Matt, we were talking, as DB said, with Coach Williams yesterday, and we asked her about kind of the losing streak about a month ago. And, she gave a very, coach answer, which I appreciate, right? But if you're sitting there and you're watching that 3-game streak against Georgia Tech, UCLA, USC, what are you thinking in that moment about?
I was with you real time, Coach. This is hilarious.
About what is happening with that team and what the rest of the season holds. And the reason I'm asking that
those
is
teams were good.
They're really, really good. But the reason I'm asking you that is I feel like there's maybe a little existential crisis on the men's side right now as well. So, what were you thinking in that moment that can maybe give a little therapeutic session to some of our listeners?
Well, DB knows. It was no surprise to me that the Huskers went 0-3. I was hoping they could pick off one of those wins.
Yep.
Georgia Tech, probably the most underrated team in the country. And they were a top 20 team when we went down there. And the Huskers were right in that game. But those two freshmen just absolutely killed Nebraska. And then, USC has Juju Watkins, and they're not even the best team in their town, okay? They're ranked 4th in the country. I mean, you think about that. You're ranked 4th in the country. You got Juju Watkins. And by the way, you're the B team in Los Angeles. UCLA is as good of a team as I've seen up close in my almost 40 years in women's basketball. So Was hoping to go at least 1-2. But what I really hope is that our team didn't look at that and think, well, there's a big problem here. I said if those 3 games got spread out between November and March, no one would really think anything about it. It's just the way the schedule fell.
Mm.
And, I even asked Amy on a pregame show, I said, is there a danger here that your team, kind of has a mental approach problem here? And she didn't think they would. And then they knocked off 20th ranked Michigan State, and they went on the winning streak. Now, I would just say to Fred Hoiberg and the guys is that, play the opponent on the floor, not the opponent in your head.
That's it.
Because, you're not that far away. This league is so tough on the men's and women's side that 1 or 2 baskets is the difference every time. And I mean, you got to win. You got to win every possession, especially late. And if you do that, they could go on a winning streak here pretty quickly, and then everybody forgets about the 5-game losing streak.
That familiar voice you hear is Mr. You Betcha. It's Matt Coatney. Coat, I asked Coach Will about the schedule. I think it's kind of cool, and I don't know how feasible it is across the board or other sports or whatever, but it presents some unique challenges, but it's very balanced in that it's round robin outside of playing Iowa twice. When you can play 10 and it's a new scout every night, I kind of think that's an advantage for how Coach Williams and this staff like to coach. You think, is it pretty cool for you to one and done for this schedule across the board for the women's hoops?
You mean as a broadcaster?
Yeah, just like yeah, that's right. Your preparation is a little difficult. There aren't any repeats except for Iowa.
Yeah, no, I'd like to play Penn State 18 times. If we're talking about these things, I mean, I know it really is. I will tell you this: there's not a better coaching staff after they've seen a team 3 or 4 times than Amy Williams. What she's got to do, she is so in tune with what a team does. You take a look at her success against Brenda Freeze in Maryland. You take a look at her success against Iowa. She's won 2 of the last 3 games against Iowa, and the only loss was in overtime in the Big Ten title game. So, if Amy's got a scout down on you and they only play you 1 time a year, advantage Nebraska every time. And that has shown through the years. She's very, very good once she has a real sense of what you're trying to do year after year after year.
Matt, when you're looking at, you mentioned that UCLA is one of the best teams you've seen in person. I want to get another comparison from you, and I want it to be on Britt Prince. When you've seen a lot of really talented freshmen either play for Nebraska or against Nebraska, you don't have to give me a ranking or anything, but how does Britt Prince measure up what you've seen so far?
Playmaker. And the closest I could give you at Nebraska, and I'm going to try to give you another point guard, is Lindsey Moore.
Oh, good pull.
Lindsey Moore is like my third daughter. And, her first year, she didn't score a lot because she was on a team that was the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament and the Big 12 champion. But she could score. She realized she had to do what she had to do to make the team successful, and she did a great job delivering the ball to Kelsey Griffin and Bonnie Turner and that group. Britt Prince is now determined with Natalie Potts out, and now that she's not a 13th grader, she's a true freshman. She's been around a little bit. And with some impetus from her coach that you need to be more involved in rebounding, you're seeing Britt Prince be a 5-tool player here. And I think Britt didn't like a lot of the conversation about her defenses behind her offense because she's got high hands and active hands, and she had a career-high 6 steals against Iowa. She's becoming the full package, and she realizes, look, I need to be on, and I need to make plays. I've interviewed her twice in the last 2 games post-game, and I've told her, playmakers make big plays, and that's how you win road games, and you've made big plays. So I would compare her to Lindsey Moore because Lindsey Moore, as a freshman, always made the right play to put Nebraska in a position to win, and that's what Britt Prince is doing right now.
Coach, it's a really talented league, obviously, but it does have a lot of good freshmen. You saw 3 playing in Iowa, and they're littered across the conference. If you're going to give an X factor going forward for this team, and a team that is built on depth, who do you like to kind of keep an eye on that could play a pretty pivotal role that may not be pinging on the radar currently?
Oh, Amaya Hargrove, no doubt about it. This is a freshman from a small town in Illinois whose father played for Chan Gailey at Georgia Tech and played in the NFL. You take a look at her DB, and I salivate that Matt Rule might, I get afraid he might come off and pick her off to go play weak side linebacker. I mean, she has all kinds of athleticism. When you look at the win at Iowa, no fear, free throws late. She stuck a 3 to kind of break an Iowa run, but her rebounding.
She plays with some joy too.
She is, and here's the other thing: her blood pressure is low. She is. The moment is not too big for her, but she has a nose for the ball. You can teach boxing out, you can teach positioning, but sometimes it just wants to. And her joy for playing basketball comes through in rebounding. Look for Amaya Hargrove to really, you want to be an X factor. That's who I'm looking at down the stretch.
Always a treat, Coat.
That's Matt Coatney, play-by-play voice for Husker women's basketball. We appreciate it, Matt. We'll talk to you later.
And I enjoyed this. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Matty.